Good evening, all, and welcome to Lullaby Legends with Lack. I'm your host, Caleb Lack, and in each episode I tell one or two short stories for you to relax by, spanning the range from the dawn of civilization to the age of information. Tonight, our stories come from Norway, and specifically some of the folk tales collected during the 1800s by the team of Asbjornsen Moe, who traveled across Norway collecting folk tales from anyone and everyone they could. Our first story is called The Mill That Keeps Grinding at the Bottom of the Sea. Long, long ago, there were once two brothers. One of them was rich and one of them was poor. When Christmas Eve arrived, the poor brother had nothing to eat in his house, neither sour milk nor bread. So he went to see his brother and asked him for a little food for Christmas. This was not the first time the man had asked for something from his rich brother, who had always been very miserly. Nor was the rich man especially pleased to get another request. "If you do what I ask you to do, I'll give you a whole ham," said the rich brother. The poor brother thanked him and agreed at once. "Here it is, then. Now go straight to hell," said the rich man, and he tossed the ham to his brother. "Well, I made a promise, so I'll have to do it," said the poor brother. Then he took the ham and set off. He walked and walked all day. At dusk, he came to a place that shone so splendidly. This must be it, thought the man with the ham. Out in the woodshed, though, stood an old man with a long white beard, chopping firewood for Christmas. "Good evening," said the man with the ham. "Good evening to you. Where are you off to so late?" said the white-bearded man. "I'm headed for hell, if only I can find the way," replied the poor man. "Well, you've come to the right place. This is it," said the old man. "When you go inside, everyone will want to buy that ham of yours, for ham is rare in hell. But don't sell it for any price. Instead, trade it for the hand mill that's behind the door. When you come back out, I'll teach you what to do with the mill. It's a useful thing to have, that it is." The man with the ham thanked him for his good advice and knocked on the devil's door. When he went in, everything happened just as the old man had said. All the demons, both big and small, swarmed around him like ants on the ground. One after another, they made offers for the ham. "It's true that my wife and I were going to have this ham for our Christmas Eve dinner, but seeing as you're all so eager to have it, I suppose I'll let it go," said the man. "But if I'm going to part with the ham, I want the hand mill that's behind the door over there." The devil was reluctant to let the hand mill go. He haggled and wrangled with the man, but the man held his ground, and eventually the devil had to give up the mill. When the man went out to the yard, he asked the old woodcutter, "How do I work the mill?" After he learned how to do that, he thanked the woodcutter and set off for home as fast as he could. Even so, he didn't get back until the clock struck midnight on Christmas Eve. "Where in the world have you been?" said his wife. "Here I've been sitting hour after hour, waiting and longing, and I don't even have 2 sticks to set crosswise under the pot for the Christmas porridge." "Oh, I couldn't get here any sooner. There was one thing and another I had to do, and it was a long way to go. But take a look at this," said the man. He set the hand mill on the table. First, he told it to make candles, then a tablecloth, and then food and beer and all the other good things for a Christmas Eve dinner. And whatever he asked for, the mill produced. His wife was so excited, but she wanted to know where her husband had found such a thing, and he didn't want to tell her. Where I found it's neither here nor there. You can see the mill is a good one, and the mill water never freezes, said the man. Then he made food and drink and plenty of other good things for the Christmas celebration. And on the third day, he invited over their friends, for he wanted to share the feast. When the rich brother saw everything was being offered at the farm, he grew both annoyed and furious, for he refused to wish his brother well. On Christmas Eve, my brother was in such great need that he came to me and begged for food. Yet now he's putting on a feast as if he were both a count and a king. Where in the flames of hell did he find all those riches? Tell me that, he turned and said to his brother. Behind the door, said the man who owned the handmill. He didn't bother to give any accounting for what had happened. No, he didn't. But later that evening, after he'd had something to eat and a few somethings to drink, he couldn't resist, and he brought out the mill. Here, you can see what has given me all these riches, he said. Then he told the mill to start grinding, and it produced one thing after another. When his brother saw this, he dearly wanted to have that mill. And at long last, he got it, although he had to pay an enormous sum of money for it. In return, he'd be allowed to have the mill when it was haymaking season during the summer. If I can have it then, he thought, I'll be able to get it to grind food for many years to come. As you might well imagine, in between that time and the time when the haymaking season arrived, the hand mill did not gather rust. It was used endlessly by the formerly poor man. But when haymaking season arrived, he was as good as his word and gave the mill to his brother, although he was careful not to tell him how to use it. It was in the evening on a summer day when the rich brother took the mill home. The next morning he told his wife to go out with the farm folks to gather in the hay. I'll make the mid-morning meal today, he said. When the mealtime approached, he set the hand mill on the kitchen table. Grind for me herring and gruel, do it fast and well, said the man. And the mill began making so much herring and so much gruel that all the dishes and all the troughs were quickly full. Soon there was enough to cover the entire kitchen floor. The man fumbled and fiddled with the mill to try and make it stop, but no matter how he turned and twisted it, the mill kept on grinding. Soon the gruel reached so high that the man was about to drown. Then he tore open the door to the living room, but it didn't take long before the mill had made enough food to fill that room too. Only with the greatest effort was the man able to reach down into the flood of gruel to get to the front door latch. When he got the door open, he didn't stay long in the house. He set off with the herring and gruel gushing out right behind him, across the yards and the fields. By now his wife, who was out spreading hay, thought it was taking a long time for their mid-morning meal to be ready. Even though my husband hasn't called us home, let's go. He doesn't know much about making gruel, so I suppose I'll have to help him, the woman said to all the other people helping make hay. So they started heading for home. After they'd gone a short distance up the hill, they saw an enormous flood of herring and gruel and bread come sloshing towards them. The farmer himself was at the front of this torrent. I wish to God that each of you had 100 wooden lunchboxes. Be careful you don't drown in the gruel, he shouted. He raced past them as if the devil were on his heels and headed for the place where his brother lived. There he begged his brother to take back the hand mill at once, If it keeps grinding for another hour, the whole countryside will perish under this flood of herring and gruel." His brother refused to take the mill back, though, unless he was paid another enormous sum of money. So his brother had to pay him. Now the brother, who used to be poor, had both the money and the mill. It didn't take long before he'd fixed up his farm, and it was much more splendid than the one his brother owned. He made the mill grind for him so much gold that he could cloud the entire window with gold plate. The farm stood close to the shore, and it could be seen gleaming and glittering from far out at sea. Everyone who sailed past wanted to come ashore to visit the rich man who lived on the golden farm. And everyone wanted to see the wondrous hand mill, for the news of it had spread far and wide. At long last, a ship's captain appeared. He wanted to see the mill, and he asked whether it could grind salt. "Oh, yes, of course it can grind salt," said the man who owned the mill. When the ship's captain heard this, he dearly wanted to have that mill, cost what it might. He thought that if he owned such a mill, he wouldn't have to sail far away through dangerous waters to fill his cargo hold with salt. At first, the man didn't want to give up the mill, but the ship's captain begged and pleaded. Finally, he agreed to sell the mill, and he was paid even more money than he had gotten from his brother for it. As soon as the ship's captain hoisted the mill onto his back, he left at once, for he was afraid the man might change his mind. And there was no time to figure out how to use the mill before he headed for his ship, moving fast as he could. When they sailed a good distance out to sea, the captain got to the hand mill. "Grind salt and do it fast and well," he said. Then the mill began grinding salt so fast that it sprayed everywhere. When the cargo hold was full, the captain wanted the mill to stop. But no matter what he did or how hard he tried, the mill just kept grinding fast as ever. The salt heap grew taller and taller, until finally the ship sank. There, at the bottom of the sea, the mill stands today, grinding salt day in and day out. And that, friends, is why the sea is always salty. Our next stories concern a bear and a fox. In the first, we learn why the bear has a stump of a tail. The bear once met the fox, who came slinking along carrying a bunch of fish that he had stolen. "Where did you get those fish?" asked the bear. "Why, I've been out angling, Mr. Bear," replied the fox. Then the bear wanted to angle too. He asked the fox how to go about it. "It's a simple matter for you," replied the fox. "You can learn it quickly enough. Just go out to the ice, chop a big hole, and stick your tail in the hole. Then stay there for a good long time. Don't pay any attention if your tail stings a little. That means the fish are biting. The longer you can hold out, the more fish you'll catch. Then with a swift tug, yank your tail up." Well, the bear did just as the fox had said. He stuck his tail way down in the hole until it froze solid. When he yanked it up, he yanked it right off. And to this day, he goes around with only a stump of a tail. In our final story tonight, we check in again on that sly fox and that bear and see how they're doing with their Christmas meal. The bear and the fox once bought a wooden tub of butter. They were planning to eat the butter for Christmas, so they hid it under a big spruce thicket. Then they walked a short distance away and lay down to sleep on a sunny patch of ground. After they'd laid there for a while, the fox got up and shouted, "Oh, yes!" Then he set off, going straight for the tub of butter. He then ate a good third of it. When he came back, the bear asked him where he'd been, for there was grease on his snout. The fox said, "Can you believe it? I've been invited to a christening feast." "Is that so? What's the name of the child?" asked the bear. "Barely started," said the fox, and they lay down to sleep. In a little while, the fox jumped up again and shouted, "Oh, yes!" He raced over to the tub of butter. There he ate a good portion of the butter. When he came back, the bear asked him where he'd been. He replied, "Oh, can you believe it? I was invited to another christening." "What's the name of the child this time?" asked the bear. "Half Eaten," said the fox. The bear thought that was a strange name, but he didn't wonder about it for long before he yawned and fell asleep. He'd been lying there only a short time when the same thing happened again. The fox jumped up and shouted, "Oh, yes!" Then he raced over the tub of butter, and this time he ate all the butter that was left. When he came back, he said he'd been to a christening. When the bear wanted to know the child's name, he replied, "Lick the bottom." With that, they both lay down to sleep, and they stayed there a good long while. When they went over to see the butter, all of it was eaten. The bear blamed the fox, and the fox blamed the bear. Each said that the other must have been at the tub of butter while they were asleep. "All right," said the sly fox. "We'll soon find out which of us stole the butter. Let's lie down over there on that sunny patch of ground. Whoever has the greasiest tail when we wake up must be the thief." Well, the bear gladly agreed to the test. He knew that he hadn't even tasted the butter, so with great confidence he lay down to sleep in the sun. Then the sly fox went over to the wooden tub and got a small lump of butter that was left. He went back to the bear and smeared the butter on his tail. Then he lay down to sleep as if nothing had happened. When they both woke up, the sun had melted all the butter. And it turned out that the bear was the one who had eaten the butter after all. That's all for tonight. I hope you enjoyed this story and that you will come back for more. If you have feedback, a suggestion, or a request, feel free to reach out and let me know. Good night, sleep tight, and don't let the Knocknitsa bite.